Go.
Maddie has a 4-point bustle. What that means is after ceremony, after pictures are done, when she is celebrating and no longer wanting to drag this behind her, there are gonna be 4 spots down here in the train that will get lifted up higher. So the first thing that you're gonna notice is that there are 2 different lengths in her train. We're gonna bustle them separately. So I'm gonna start by just handing up all of the illusion lace to Maddie, and I'll be like, this is your one job. Okay, cool. So we're gonna come under here. There are 2 layers of lining, but we're only gonna need to bustle 1. So if you look down this center seam, we're gonna come up here to this little pretty yellow ribbon, and there's a loop on the end. If you look up higher, we're gonna see some other things. Listen, there's a same color ribbon that will be for that, but while we're up here, I also wanna show the bustle ribbons that we're gonna pull to the outside of the dress. And we need to make sure that they're actually not twisted. There are 3 sets of them. They all have a button at the back. If these were twisted around each other or like looped in and out, when we pull them out, they'll get stuck. So these look really great. They're all separate, they're not twisted. So we're also gonna make sure that we don't tie them with this. So just take one of these ribbons, there we are, and we're gonna put it through the loop. And then we're gonna bring that loop all the way to the center between these 2 ribbons and just tie that up into a bow like you're tying your shoelaces. You don't need to tie these into knots, but you are more than welcome to if you'd like. These just easily come out. All of my ribbons want to grip anyways. So there's our under bustle point. That just gets that up for us so it's not in the way for her anymore. Thank you, Maddie. So just like the under layer, this one has loops in the skirt and ribbons above. We saw the ribbons earlier. Now we're gonna pull them out. So I'm gonna come here to the very bottom of her zipper, the last button, and go down about 4 inches, kind of right here on this applique. There are these little knots that are resting against the fabric. We're gonna go ahead and pull them all the way out. And now that ribbon is laying here. If you go kind of over and down right here on this applique, there are 2 more ribbon ends and knots. And then that same spot over on the other side of the dress. I leave those ends there so that you can find them a little easier. So don't trim those off. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3 sets of ribbon strings. Now we're gonna find our loops. There's kind of like those strings. We're gonna have 1 loop on the right, 1 on the left, and 1 down the center. I always leave the center one for last so I know which is my placement for right and left. So if you kind of look right here, there's this applique. And if you kind of look down here between these, there's a little bead here and a ribbon. If you're having a hard time, you can go underneath the dress and find these little buttons back here with the ribbon ends. Again, I leave these so you can find them. Do not clip them off. So on the outside of that, there is a bead attached to that ribbon, so I'm gonna just lift that up. And now we have a loop. Loop goes to the ribbons, just like the way it did on the inside. We're taking 1 ribbon, putting it through the loop, and then bringing this all the way up here. It's hard to see just because they're all the same color. So, if this droops down while you're tying, it'll be too long. So make sure it's all the way up. I like to kind of grab that fabric and stick it on my knee so I'm not fighting the dress. And then we just simply go ahead and tie this like we did on the inside in just a cute little bow. You can make this a cute little decorative bow. I always recommend just like a little small ear here and then longer ribbons, or if you're more like me and want to hide them, I'm gonna go ahead and take all of these ribbons and just twist them up nice and tight here so that there's some structure for me to push. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get that loop and then push it through the loop and pull it to the back side. I'll give you guys a crochet hook to do that. This is fine for me, but you might be struggling with that. So go ahead and I'll give you a crochet hook that you can pull it backwards. But that hides them a little bit better for now. All right, we've got the right side done. We're gonna come over here to the left. Immediately, I knew where this was, but if you're struggling, go underneath to find that little bead. It's kind of near that same applique. There we go. And then all the way up. The center one is done the same way. It's just on the center seam. And since we have all this fabric up, I'm gonna go underneath to find it because that makes it easier. So actually I lied, I found it. So there's the center applique and it's about a 1/2 inch above that. Same thing, there's our loop. Once this is bustled up, it's not really coming down again until she needs to get the dress cleaned. If it gets tied into a knot and you decide you'd like to take it down, you're gonna have to clip that. But just be very careful when you untie them. They're totally fine that way. You can tie and untie them, just be careful. Again, twist up, put back through, or make a cute little bow there. As she walks and dances and celebrates, those ribbons are gonna peek out no matter what, and the bustle will just get jumbled. For pictures, you always want it to display really nicely. So I always like to kind of find the center points between each of those bustles and then push down and towards the center so it creates like a cascading triangle effect. Check the sides and make sure that's laying really smoothly, and then same thing over here. Last thing is always end with bringing that center lace forward so that motif just continues down. And that is her 4-point bustle.